A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad you're with me on the program today. We're going to be talking with our friend Mike Harris from the Gun Owners Action League up in Massachusetts about an election. I've been looking for good news, and I just haven't found much when it comes to good news for gun owners. Certainly not in my home state of Virginia, where Democrats took back complete control of the state legislature on Tuesday. It doesn't mean that gun control is going to get moving in the Commonwealth. You do still have Governor Glenn Youngkin. In fact, I suspect that if Democrats are savvy, they will lay very, very low on the gun issue in the upcoming session in Virginia. They will not talk about gun control. They will not push for a gun ban because they know that Governor Youngkin is going to veto it. And they want voters to forget just how outrageous their previous gun control proposals have been. Remember when Governor Ralph Northam was still in office and Democrats took complete control of the legislature in 2019. One of the first bills that was offered was a ban on so-called assault. And Governor Northam actually wanted a ban not only on the manufacture and sale of modern sporting rifles, but a ban on the possession of those guns as well. Now, the bill that ultimately emerged grandfathered in existing owners, and that bill was rejected in part by a number of Democratic state senators in Virginia. But those senators who still remain in office have basically all flipped, and they're now in support of a gun ban. So unless we see a much better election result in 2025, when, again, the state house is going to be up for grabs in all statewide offices, tell you what, Virginians could be looking at the Californication of our gun laws in the very near future. But on today's show, we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about, the Massachusettsification, if that's a word, of gun laws, and a small victory, but a significant victory for gun owners in the Bay State this week. We'll get to that in just a moment. Before we do, we got to talk about this for just a second. Biden's America, it is crushing us. You've got companies laying off tens of thousands of workers, one after the other. Americans working two jobs just to get by. Inflation pushing hardworking families to the brink. Just look at the price of lunch meat next time you go to the grocery store. And a digital dollar could be coming down the pipeline to completely destroy our way of life. The truth is, you need a plan. You know it, and I know it. And that's why you should call Goldco. So you can diversify your savings and investments with gold and silver before things get worse. They're a 6-time Inc. 5000 winner, 2022 Company of the Year, thousands of 5-star reviews, and they've helped people like you and me place over $1 billion in gold and silver. They're offering up to $10,000 in free silver while supplies last, and if you call them today, qualified callers will get a free Ronald Reagan half-ounce silver coin. So don't wait. Call Goldco at 855-412-3806 today. That's 855-412-3806. And now let's, turn our attention to what happened in Massachusetts this week. Mike Harris, Director of Public Policy at the Gun Owners Action League, was gracious enough to spend a couple minutes with us this morning talking about a flip in the Massachusetts State Senate. And that, again, significant not only for Republicans, it is certainly significant for Republicans, but this is, I think, significant for gun owners as well. Take a look and a listen. Mike, thanks so much for coming to the program. Honestly, I have to say, I was not expecting to call on you so soon after our last conversation, but sitting here looking for good news from Election Day, and there's not much to be found in Virginia, where Democrats took back control of the state legislature. But then I start looking at Massachusetts. There actually is legitimate good news for gun owners here. A pro-gun voice getting elected to the state Senate on Tuesday.
Yeah, Peter Durant. He flipped a House or a Senate seat. My apologies. So now Republicans have 10% of the Senate, 4 out of 40. So any progress is good progress. But it is what it is. But yeah, he's great. He's one of the good ones. He's been a strong advocate for us through his entire time in the House. And
how was he on 4420? Like, did he actively oppose 4420?
Oh yeah. He was one of the loudest voices against it. Actually, he was awesome. He's actually until he takes his Senate seat, he's actually the ranking Republican on the Committee on the Judiciary. So he was the a vocal opponent of the bill of the committee that he sits on. So Mike Day is the chair of that committee, and he's the one who proposed the bill, and Peter immediately came out against it. And actually, funny story. So October 10th was the day of the hearing on the bill, where they had the joint committee hearing with Ways and Means, when they kind of took we didn't see him do it, but they took the time machine back and stuck it in that budget bill, and then pretended it had always been there. But Peter had to make a decision if he was going to be out in the district and campaigning, because he had a primary opponent, or if he was going to do his job and be in Boston at the State House, and he chose to be at the State House for 5 or 6 hours on the day where his name was on the ballot. And you can't ask anything more of somebody who's running for office. That was a stand-up move, and we appreciated it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
It showed in the vote.
Now, there is an interesting twist here. This was a flip, right? I mean, this is a seat that's been occupied by Democrats for several decades at this point. Long time, right? Mm-hmm. So, but the Democrat the reason why we had the special election is because the Democratic state senator was appointed by Governor Healy to a state position, right?
Yeah, and the rural affairs coordinator or something. Yeah.
Okay, and you said she was actually good on the issue as well.
She was great. Yeah, and Gobi, she was a hunter. She's awesome. She was I think that's one of the reasons why the governor pulled her up to do what she's doing now.
to get rid of a pro-gun Democrat.
Well, I know. But she was always great. She got an A from us. We endorsed her all the time. She filed bills for us. She was great on our stuff. We were actually kind of sad when she was leaving, because we didn't know what was going to happen after that. And our advocacy voices are getting slimmer and slimmer. But this was, we couldn't have asked for a better turnout.
That is fantastic. Now, what about Duran's Democratic opponent? How are they on guns?
John Zlotnick. So he's great too.
Why are all of these pro-gun politicians in one district, Mike? We need to start to get them spread out across the state here.
An endorsement from us this last time through, and we'll probably give him an endorsement this time against. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, did I pop up for a second?
Yeah, just for a second.
But yeah, he was one of the few. He was one of the few Democrats that voted against 4135. He's great.
Okay.
We'll probably endorse him if he runs for re-election. We'll probably endorse him this time.
So the good news is that he is a sitting state rep, and so he'll stay in the state house and hopefully continue to be one of those Democratic voices advocating for true common sense gun laws, which is not what 4135 is all about. Is there something about this district? Is this a rural part of Massachusetts? Why are all of these pro Second Amendment politicians in this one part of the state here?
It just kind of there's Worcester County. It's a strip that runs through the center of Massachusetts, and it's odd. It's split up into the districts are split up strangely. Mm-hmm. You have Worcester, the city of Worcester, and then I'm looking at my map here, and then you have a few different smaller cities around. And we have colleges. You can't throw a rock in Massachusetts without hitting a college. So that always kind of skews things. But this district is kind of in that sweet spot where it's normal people.
I didn't realize that there was still a part of Massachusetts that could be described that way. That's good news.
It's such a weird electoral map in Massachusetts, because Western Mass should be red, but there's the sisters out there and all those liberal arts colleges that just skew everything.
Right.
It's farmland as far as you can see until you hit 6 or 7 colleges.
So now that Representative Duran is going to be Senator-elect Duran, does that mean there's going to be another special election to fill his state rep seat?
Yeah.
Are there any names being bandied about?
Not that I've heard. I know I think there was some talk about his one of his former aides running.
Okay.
It was pretty good. But yeah, I haven't really heard any names yet, because the GOP in Mass kind of our contingency plans are kind of weird.
Right. Well, so yeah, and this was actually part of the coverage at the Boston Globe, which I'm always hesitant to take the Globe at face value, especially when it comes to gun issues. But they were talking about how there has been a change in leadership within the GOP. Right,
Yeah.
the former, I guess Jim Lyons was ousted in January, according to the Boston Globe. So now you've got a new a chairperson, and it sounds like again this is a good step forward for the party. How do you? And again, not that the right to keep and bear arms is partisan. I mean, particularly in Massachusetts, it's so important that you be able to work with Second Amendment Democrats who actually recognize the value of the right to keep and bear arms. But
that's our bread and butter.
Well, I mean, it has to be. Again, if you've got 10% of the state Senate is Republican, you better be looking for those pro-gun Democrats. In fact, in Virginia, we should probably start taking some advice from you guys on how to do that with the makeup of our own legislature changing. But, was 4420 or 4135 or whatever bill number it is now, was gun control an issue in this race? Even if both candidates were Second Amendment supporters, is this an issue that matters to their constituents, to the voters in this district?
Yes, absolutely. I would say evidenced by who was running, who came out of the end of the primary on this, on both sides, who held the seat for as long as she did. And the fact that Peter was such an outspoken critic of this bill, and that John Zlotnick felt comfortable enough to vote against the bill, a couple weeks out from the general election.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was a big deal. And then Peter's been up and down about this thing since it came out. So, the makeup of this district I think they see gun control for what it is.
Right.
And I think a lot of people were turned off by the process that this bill came through. The Democratic leadership in the House really did themselves a disservice, in my opinion, with the way that they snuck this thing.
Mm-hmm. And I got to say, I mean, I don't know to what purpose, what was accomplished by doing that. Clearly, it didn't put the pressure on the state Senate to move forward, as you and I talked last time.
And we're kind of beating that drum now.
Yeah.
And did you cut out? Oh,
yeah. I think we might be having some little technical glitches, but as I was saying, I don't know what the reason for these machinations by the House was. It didn't. If it was an attempt to put pressure on the Senate, it didn't work, right? Because as you told me last time, the Senate has come out and said we're not going to be dropping any legislation until at least January.
Yeah.
So they ticked off a lot of people, fired up gun owners, and again, for what purpose? So they could say they passed a bill.
Legacy shopping for the speaker.
Okay,
I guess. I don't know. It was the urgency that they slammed this thing through with in the first year of a 2-year legislative session was really strange. And the fact that they felt like they had to go through, I mean, they had the votes. It was obvious from the beginning they had the votes to pass something.
Right.
The fact that they needed to go through and strong arm people and play these weird little dirty tricks really, I think, when I've described it to people, even people on the other side of this issue from us, when I've described it to them, they've really, it's kind of spun their heads around and made them kind of just turns them off. And this is the kind of stuff that, people talk about all the time that shakes confidence in these institutions of government that we have. This is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. Yeah.
Well, and we're going to be continuing to talk about this. So, so with Durant now heading to the Senate and the Senate leadership saying, well, it's going to be at least January until we get a bill.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that Durant will have a seat at the table in crafting the Senate's gun bill?
Absolutely. So there's a hearing coming up. I believe it's the 28th, where the Senate Public Safety Committee is going to be taking up. They're going to be hearing about all of the bills that have been filed so far.
Okay.
And the Senate seems to be taking a lot more thoughtful approach to this rather than starting from scratch. They're going to take a look at all of the legislative concerns that senators and outsiders currently have, so that they can kind of look at those things and maybe incorporate some of that stuff into a piece of legislation. And there's been some talk in the Senate the last few days that we've been hearing where they're going to start focusing on certain aspects of the law that they want to address, rather than just jump on this thing as a holistic, or not as a attack, I guess,
Right.
for lack of a better way to say it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, you and I have talked before about the makeup of the Senate. I know that you're not expecting a great bill.
No,
less bad, perhaps, than the House version, but
more thoughtful.
Not just a knee-jerk attack on gun ownership.
Right.
Okay. Well, I mean, fingers crossed that Senator-elect Durant does have a seat at the table and can at least perhaps mitigate some of the damage that might be done here. But I know we'll be talking about this going forward. And in the meantime, congratulations. I'm glad that A was a choice between two candidates who have said and done the right things. I hope that is the case one day for many more races in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
right?
Me too. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing, especially on this issue. I mean, I'm sure there's other things that we disagree about, but I have nothing negative to say about Reb Zlotnick either. He's a great guy. We've worked great with him. And we didn't even get involved in this race because we knew that we had friends on both sides of the election. So, rather than make an enemy, we just said we're just going to stay out of this because we like both of you guys. You've both been champions of the cause throughout your entire legislative careers, and we hope the best for both of you.
Well, I hope the best for both of them too. It's good that we've got a pro-gun Democratic voice in the House, and it's good that we've got another pro-gun Republican voice in the state Senate. And hopefully, again, they can help protect the Second Amendment because it needs a lot of protection in Massachusetts. Exactly. Mike, listen, man, thanks so much for hopping on. It was kind of last minute request here, but I'm glad you could join us on the show today.
Me too. Thanks a lot, Cam. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Mike Harris from the Gun Owners Action League with us here in Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. And my thanks again to Mike Harris for hopping on with us this morning. And I think based on our conversation, I think I'm going to reach out to the senator-elect, as well as Representative Zlotnick, the pro-gun Democrat who was defeated in this special election, because honestly, I would love to talk to a pro-gun Democrat. There's such endangered species around the country these days. And, after the election results this week, I think we need to, we can't put all of our Second Amendment eggs in the GOP basket. I think it would behoove us as Second Amendment advocates to, again, reach out to those pro-gun Democrats, try to grow the number of pro-gun Democrats, not only in states like Massachusetts or Virginia, where, again, Democrats now have complete or will soon have complete control of the state legislature, but around the country. We saw one of the things that emerged from this year's elections, and we saw this in Virginia, every town running a lot of ads in support of their gun control candidates that barely mentioned gun control. Instead, focused a lot on abortion. And that proved to be a winning message around the country. Both in Virginia, we saw issue 1 pass overwhelmingly in Ohio. We know, again, that there are arguments that can and should resonate with Democrats when it comes to protecting the right to keep and bear arms. I personally think that the fact that it's a constitutional right is chiefly among them, even though that seems to be largely ignored. But you've got Democrats like Anthony Brown, the Attorney General in Maryland, who's, what can we do about mass incarceration? Well, how about wiping some of these nonviolent possessory felonies off of the books? And that way you're not putting people in prison for exercising the right to keep and bear arms. I don't know. I just think it's worth it. It's a conversation worth pursuing. So I will reach out to Representative Zlotnick and see if he'll be willing to join us in the program. No guarantees, but we'll see. All right, let's turn our attention now to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We'll start there with a case out of Iowa and Illinois, actually. Here's the headline from KCCI. Suspect in deadly eastern Iowa shooting was previously barred from having a gun after a conviction in Illinois. apparently. KCCI says on Tuesday, police in Monticello, Iowa, say 38-year-old Nathan Russell of East Dubuque shot and killed a man named Aaron McAtee outside of a convenience store in what police say appears to be a random act of violence. Officials found Russell in Hopkinton later in the day. Officer ended up shooting Russell and refused to comply with orders to be detained. He's currently being treated at a hospital in Iowa, I believe University of Iowa Hospitals for his injury. Another news outlet, KCRG, found court documents that showed Russell pleaded guilty in September of last year in Illinois to felony possession of methamphetamine. And as part of that plea agreement, a felony gun possession charge was dismissed. So the gun charge gets dropped, even though, again, according to Illinois, gun violence is oh so serious. But when you get somebody, drop it. Drop it. Let's send them to the drug charge instead. Judge gave Russell 2 years in prison and a year of supervised release. KCCI says, based on that timeline, Russell should still have been behind bars. But the Illinois Department of Corrections confirmed to KCRG that Russell was not in their parole system, could not say when he was released from prison. So not only should he have still been in prison, but he was apparently not on parole, even though he was supposed to have a year of supervised release after he got out. And this sentence was applied 14 months ago. Again, as Illinois lawmakers are passing all kinds of laws aimed at legal gun owners, what the hell is going on in the criminal justice system here? We don't know, but we do know that Russell is now accused of murder after, again, being sentenced to 2 years in prison less than a year and a half ago. Today's armed citizen story from Omaha, Nebraska, Douglas County, technically. A shooting on Sunday was self-defense, according to the Douglas County attorney. It sounds like this was basically a domestic violence incident that resulted in self-defense. Deputy County Attorney Brenda Beadle said the office has made a preliminary finding that the fatal shooting of 24-year-old Khalif O'Neal by 26-year-old Antonio Evans was justified. According to statements by police called to a home shortly before 3 a.m. Sunday morning on reports of a shooting. When they arrived, they found Khalif O'Neal with multiple gunshot wounds. He was taken to the Nebraska Medical Center where he passed away. Evans was still there on the scene, taken to police headquarters to be interviewed. Beadle said that the disturbance began after Khalif O'Neal arrived at the home, which belonged to the mother of his child, started banging on the windows and threatening to kill Mr. Evans. The banging, according to Beadle, went on, quote, for a while before Evans opened the front door. When he did open that front door, he had a firearm in his hand. Khalif O'Neal had a gun as well. Beadle said when Evans opened the door, O'Neal was pointing the gun at him. The two, quote, exchanged gunfire, each firing several shots before O'Neal was struck and fell backwards down the stairs. Evans actually stayed on the scene and rendered aid to O'Neal. He was cooperative with police. Beadle said his version of events matched evidence collected in the investigation. And again, this appears to be a justified use of deadly force there in Douglas County, Nebraska. Today's good deed of the day, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. A small business owner in Fairmont, West Virginia. Michael Wood owns Power Wash Bros, which is based in Morgantown. He was on his way back from a job, and he noticed a cloud of smoke coming from one of his customers' houses. So he pulled over and got out. He says, I'm driving by on Highway 250, peek over the bank. He said, there's this massive fire on a hillside. So he says, it's panic. I turned around as quickly as I could. I pulled down there. I jumped out, and Bob's fighting the fire. I said, hey, I got my power washer. Can I help you? He said, yeah, get up here. So I went up there, and I put the fire out with my power washer and took a picture of it as well. Apparently, it took about an hour and a half to put out the blaze using the power washer in question. He said it was perfect timing on my part, just getting here and put it out. He said, we're very close to having the fire department and come up here and put it out. It was pretty bad. It took a half hour, he said, to put it out with the power washer. About a half acre burned. We've got a wildfire, not particularly close to where I live, but north of Charlottesville right now that has grown to, I think, 2,000 plus acres. They've had some folks have to be evacuated. So these things can get out of control very, very quickly. And if Mitchell Wood had not been in the right place at the right time and had the equipment to do the right thing, who knows how bad this could have been. He says he's been in the power washing business for a decade, says he's been waiting for a moment like this his entire career. He says, I always wanted to put out a fire with my power washer. He said, I'd seen it on national news years ago. Some guy put one out, but it was a car fire that he put out. He didn't, have the water in his pressure washer, so it just worked out. Worked out really good. It did. And now you can cross it off your bucket list. Hopefully you never have to deal with that again, but in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing for a customer in need. Mitchell Wood, owner of Power Wash Bros in Morgantown, West Virginia. We thank you for your very, very good deed. Now, that is all the time we've got for you in this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company, and we will be back with you again on Monday of next week, but we'll be updating BearingArms.com throughout the meantime, keeping you up to date on all of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation and beyond, actually. We've got a story today about gun control activists filing a complaint in an international tribunal alleging that the Second Amendment is a violation of human rights. Yes. Plus, armed citizen stories, the latest legislative and legal news. It's all there for you at BearingArms.com. If you like what you see, I'd also encourage you to become a VIP or VIP Gold member. All you have to do, go to BearingArms.com/subscribe. Use the promo code GUNRIGHTS, and you can get a significant savings on your VIP membership. As our way of saying thanks, we're going to give you exclusive content you won't find anywhere else because your support really does matter, and it truly does make a difference. So thank you again. We'll see you back here for another edition of Cam & Company on Monday. In the meantime, be well, be safe, and be free.